Hi, welcome to my channel.
Hey, welcome back. What we're going to do now is we're going to take this contour drawing with all the mapped cross sections, and we're going to go ahead and overlay it with a fresh sheet of tracing paper to create a line drawing. Okay, so here's my tracing paper. It's cut the size. We're going to go ahead and just make sure it stays on there. All right, that moves a little bit. It's okay. And then what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and zoom in a little bit. Okay, so you can see the drawing as closely as possible. And the tools we're going to be using here is going to be a combination of a ballpoint pen, a ballpoint roller marker, and my good old reliable Sharpie Ultrafine point, because I can get some pretty good quality black line work out of this. All right, so let's go ahead and uncork that, and let's get started. And all we're going to do is we're not going to be redrawing a lot of these contours. We're actually going to kind of look at these contours and interpret what certain features and line detail and what directions are they going to go in order to create a line drawing that we can then use for either value studies with gray markers or to even use for a color sketch rendering, because it's going to tell us right away where the highlights, the halftones, and the chords are going to occur. All right, so let's go ahead and get started. Now what you'll see is I'll just be doing a lot of tracing, okay? And every now and then I'm just going to pop in with a comment with regards to what I'm doing that's a little bit different, okay? Now, what I'm doing here is I'm starting to sculpt what I think the interpretation of that contour is going to do. And every now and then is I'll go ahead and try to find ways to bridge certain details, certain visual details. Like here, I'm going to go ahead and pop in a mirror, okay? Here I'm going to pop in a seam. Now as I rotate, now I'll be rotating my canvas quite a bit, so please, I'll try to reposition it so it's visible as much as I can, okay? You can see I've put the roof cap and I've given a profile to the roof, okay? Now here's where it's going to be a little bit, how can I say, an interpretation of what's happening with these contour lines. And remember the three contour lines that I developed here? You know, those three contour lines will actually relate to these contour lines in the front of the car. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to come down the contour and I'll map a line here to the fender, okay, to the front wheel opening. And then you see how this line passes over that contour? And watch what happens when I bring it all the way over. Watch. Do you see it? Do you see how that contour works? I wanted to make sure that this contour managed this hot spot or this highlight. This is where it's going to catch all the light. So I wanted to make sure that that line kind of defined that whole area. Okay. Now as this comes across, it's going to form the side of the vehicle, the upper portion. Okay. And the area that's going to be a little bit left up to a bit of blending is going to be right in this area here. So that's where it's going to be a little bit flat, and this is where the highlight continues all the way across. And you'll see that probably in a future video when I start to develop some of these into a more rendered state. Okay, we'll come across, and here's the other wheel. This is the back wheel. Remember how this is a little bit offset? So we're going to go ahead and give this a little more definition. We'll follow this contour. Okay. Now you can choose to put wheel details at this point. I usually don't. I usually will draw the tire in and leave it at that, because my focus here is that transitional drawing. It's going from that grid, right? Let me just go ahead and pull up the drawing, right? And then let me go ahead and slip in another piece of white paper behind it so you can see the development that's happening already. You see? You see the forms are starting to develop. You can start to kind of see the form of the car. In your mind's eye, you'll be able to kind of fill it in with color and value. But let's kind of complete this drawing, and then when we get to that point, we'll be ready to kind of get ready for that next phase of drawing development. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and pull that piece of paper out. Again, pardon me as I kind of straighten out my papers again. We'll go ahead and develop the rear wing a bit. Okay, you can see I kind of have some little side splits here. Okay, I've given it a little bit of a shape. Okay, maybe a little bit of material thickness here. All right. And let's go ahead and move over to the other side. So as I come over to the other side, develop that side of the car, I want to make sure that I have a mirror on the other side. So you'll find me every now and then kind of using some of my basic perspective grid techniques, because what it does, it kind of gives me a heads up as to, hey, this is a tough area, guys. Let's make sure that our perspective is reading. So these little guidelines or draw through lines, please don't let these bother you. They're part of the drawing. They give the drawing character, and it's also going to help with your precision. So I highly recommend doing those. Okay, now I come over here to the other side. I'm going to make a little correction on my sketch, because on my original drawing I had a relatively sharp angle on that light, and I realized that on the other light it's actually not quite as sharp. So I'm going to go ahead and make that a little steeper. And then I'm going to rotate my canvas again. And now I know that this contour here shows as being flat, but I think that it would look a lot nicer if it was crowned. Okay, and I'm going to do the same thing with the front of the top of the bumper here. And you see the blending happening. It's much, much more smooth and looks a lot nicer, more three-dimensional. Okay. And I took some liberties there at the front, adding a little area here for maybe an intake or a license plate. Okay, just something to kind of help move the design along. All right, and then let's see. I think we're in pretty good shape here. Maybe a little bit of the headlight. I might put a little bit of contour here in the front of the hood, because I know that there's a little bit of an air inlet here at the front of the hood. So again, I use my grid as a perspective guide, so that I maintain some bit of symmetry as I'm going through that detail. Okay, and then there might be a little antenna in the back. All right. All right. Now when you get to this part of the drawing, it's probably okay to kind of pull away from the grid. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to go ahead and rather than kind of pull that drawing out, because I still might need it as reference, I'm going to go ahead and take another sheet of white paper and slip it in from behind to see where I am. And you start to begin to see the vehicle, right? It's starting to look pretty good. So I'm going to go ahead and pull this down into my area here, and I'm going to go ahead and add more details. Maybe some of the details I'm going to add is maybe the rear window, maybe some trim, and then the all-important door line, right? You got to be able to get into this vehicle. So I'm going to go ahead and spot where that's going to be. Okay. And this is really a great way of knowing where the handle might want to be. Maybe we can put some tail lights. Okay, and again, two more details are probably going to be just some wheels. So we go ahead and just draw an ellipse here, and a second ellipse here. Okay, and put a wheel center. And another wheel center. Okay. Now, I'm not going to go back in and put a lot of more details in it, because I think for now this is enough. Okay. So you see the interpretation from the grid drawing. Let me go ahead and put a little cast shadow underneath here. Oops, the rear wing. Okay. Let's zoom out and see where we are. Yeah, it's looking pretty good. All right, so you can see how we went from this contour drawing. I'm just going to overlay that really quick. You can see how it had the basic structure to that. All right, so in my next video, we're going to go ahead and maybe print some copies of this drawing, and then we're going to show how to use just two simple markers to create a gray value drawing that'll start to bring this drawing to life. Okay, so we'll see you at the next video.